Okay, hi. I'm Cameron. I'm currently in my last year of my Bachelor of Commerce at UCID, and this year is my honours year in economics. So I'm looking at how global shocks are transmitted to the Australian economy, both the financial market side and the real economy side of things. Um, so alongside that, for work, I'm just currently tutoring high school maths, which I've done since starting uni, and have also started teaching a economics class at uni, which has been an interesting experience. But yeah, always been super interested in macro kind of coming out of high school. I sort of knew it was sort of the direction I wanted to go. Um, Got to try out a few different things over uni, but over the summer got to intern in Goldman's markets team where sort of rotated across a few different desks and really came out of that having loved it and kind of knowing confidently that I want to start my career in markets and, in particular on some sort of macro desk. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at, I guess, academically and professionally, and brings me to sort of why I'm interested in the role here. But yeah, outside of that, I'm a very outdoors guy, so love playing sport. Have played sort of football and cricket, football as in soccer, for my whole life really, and love it. I'm currently the manager of my football team, which we sort of continued out of high school, kept the team together. So yeah, currently the manager of that team, not playing at like an elite level or anything, but it's competitive enough and we have a good time. And yeah, enjoy watching all sports, whether it's, tennis, football, rugby, golf, whatever it is, kind of just a big sport guy. So that's one. I also love traveling. So in every holidays, except the most recent one, obviously, have been able to get overseas and sort of see a new part of the world that I hadn't seen before, which I think is really fun, but also really valuable in terms of like kind of developing worldviews and sort of getting a better understanding of yourself and things. And kind of in particular, when I've gone traveling, I've always tried to go hiking because I think that's a great way to sort of see a place and meet new people in kind of an authentic way. So yeah, have been able to do a Camino in Spain, hiked through Patagonia, and I've actually been to Nepal twice as well. So got to do some pretty cool stuff. And then yeah, at a bit of a smaller level, like in Sydney, something I love doing with my mates is just hosting a games night. So we've recently started having that every week, playing sort of strategy games, which we like Catan or whether it's poker or something. That's kind of a more casual thing, I guess. And we recently started playing Dungeons and Dragons for the first time, which is something that I didn't think I would ever play, but we've started it and it's pretty fun. So yeah, that's kind of me, I guess. So one risk that I've considered taking that came to mind comes from when I traveled with a mate down in Patagonia in Chile. Um, Basically, the situation was we wanted to do this really famous hike right in the south of Chile, um, but we only made the decision that we wanted to go like very short notice, like a couple of weeks before sort of the holidays came around, and we found out that these campsites get booked out sort of like 6 months in advance. So we looked online and they were all booked out, or most of them were booked out, and it was looking a bit dire. Um, so the decision became really, do we not bother going down because we might not be able to book a site, and we might kind of be left stranded with nothing to do, or do we take the chance, go down, and really basically just try and figure things out when we get there. Um, so yeah, we kind of took some time, and I guess the way we approached this problem was we first thought about like I guess first we did a bunch of research. So we tried to find out as much as we could about the problem, look online, like read a bunch of blogs, try and understand as best as we could how the booking system actually works, what options there are, and really to kind of get an idea of the likelihood that we could kind of pitch up and be able to book campsites there despite them having been booked online. So that was kind of the first thing, get as much of an understanding as we could. Um, and then I think once we had that, what we really did next was develop sort of like a plan B and a plan C of what we would do if we got there and we weren't able to kind of, book things perfectly. What other options would we have so that we didn't just kind of book this flight, arrive there and be sort of stuck in that spot. And we managed to do that. So we developed sort of a plan B, like um, the national park was near a town. So our plan B was if we can't book the sites, we'll stay in the town and kind of just have to drive to and from on each of the days that we're down there, which wasn't ideal, but it was an option. And then I think plan C was like find a sort of another hiking location nearby that we could drive to once we got down to that location. So how did we come to a decision? I guess we sort of weighed up all these things. From our research, we felt like there was a fairly decent chance that we could go down there and be able to book stuff. But I think what it really came down to was, I think if we didn't go, we would have been quite regretful. And it would have felt like we kind of missed out on this opportunity to do something really cool. So we ended up going for it. And when we got there, of course, as things always do, they became much more straightforward as soon as you sort of speak to one person that actually lives there. And we were able to book a few sites and kind of piece it together, not perfectly, but well enough. And, it all worked out really, really well, and had a great time. So yeah, I think that's one that comes to mind. Okay, so one goal that I think I fell short of comes from last year when I was the sponsorships director at the Sydney Uni Business Society. So as a team at the start of the year, we had kind of set out a goal of wanting to increase the number of sponsors we had back to sort of the level we had a couple years back as a society. I think we'd fallen from around 15 to something like 10 sponsors a year professionally. And we sort of just wanted to up these numbers. But yeah, unfortunately, throughout the year, we weren't really able to do that. We just sort of maintained that level of around 10 that we had been at the prior year, which was a bit disappointing, obviously. So why did this happen? I think there are a few reasons. I think first, the outreach approach that we took probably wasn't ideal. I think we took a bit of a spray and pray mentality, kind of sent out as many emails as we could to as many companies we could kind of find a contact for. And that sort of resulted in the emails being very generic, where I think a better approach would have been to have taken some time and really thought about which companies are the best fit for the business society. Which companies aren't already having this like campus recruitment sponsorship purpose served by other societies at uni, and really, identified the ones where our value proposition was the strongest. And then if we had done that, we could have maybe personalized the emails more, and been able to be a bit more explicit in why they should sponsor us. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing I think we probably didn't do very well was utilizing the relationships that people had within the kind of leadership team of the society. Since the society is quite large and every year people go through and then leave, there's a fairly strong alumni network there. And people have friends or whatever. They know people that work at all sorts of companies. And I think we could have lent on that much more than we did. I think, getting your foot in the door through a contact is, infinitely better than some sort of cold email that you might receive. And I think at the time, I don't think I appreciated that enough. And since then, I think I've learnt sort of the importance of relationships in terms of getting your foot in the door. So yeah, if I had my time again, would definitely lean on that, like across the society, and would really push hard for that. And then I think the third thing as well was just the timing. I think we probably should have started the process a bit earlier, and I think I underestimated, given the number of moving parts there, how long things would take to kind of get off the ground. And what we found was that we had a number of companies sort of come back to us and say, sorry, budget's been already full, come back to us like a few months earlier next year and you might have something. So yeah, I think it was unfortunate, but definitely took some stuff out of it. And I think, could improve if I were to do something like that again. Okay, so what do I think is a day in the life of a fixed income trader? So hey, first thing in the morning, you're going to come in to work and you're going to be updating yourself on what markets have done overnight. So you're going to be looking at, where have prices moved? Has any new data come out? Any headlines that might be relevant for my desk? And you're going to be thinking about how that might reflect or translate into pricing throughout the rest of your session that's about to happen. So, for example, if you were a rates trader, you might be looking at where the US 10-year went overnight and then thinking about, okay, how might the Aussie 10-year respond to that? Or how has it already responded? And, is that going to continue through the day? And then, once liquidity sort of picks up later in the day, I think really it's kind of two things. It's pricing client flow when you want to, and then managing the desk's risk, I suppose. So deciding where we want to allocate risk, and what price are we willing to pay for that. And a big part of that, I guess, is adjusting your view as the market evolves over time and as prices change. constantly challenging whether your risk is allocated in the right place. So that's kind of what I see as the main job of a fixed income trader. So why am I well suited to it? I think a few things. I think number one is I'm actually really interested in the stuff. So, have always been super interested in macro, studied it at uni, have a good understanding of the content, I suppose. And it's something that I've known for a while. Like, I want to be working with it. And to have the opportunity to sort of work with this stuff day in, day out would be, something I would really enjoy. So I think that's the first thing. I think secondly is I think my skill set is really well suited to it. So like on one hand, I think I'm quite quantitative, able to work with numbers really well, and like quickly too. So I know obviously trading can be quite pressurized, and there can be a need to do things really quickly, and I think I'm well suited to that. But then also on the other hand, in terms of skill set, I think there's a big role for like relationship management, even in trading, and like teamwork. And I think I'm someone that has been able to do that well in the past. So I think I have a kind of a good balance between both sides there. But I guess the last thing, I think it's an environment that I think I would strive in. I think it's unique in the sense that you sort of know very quickly whether you are right or wrong. You can implement an idea and then, the next day or later that same day, you might find out whether you were right or wrong. And I think that kind of gives you this feedback loop that most jobs just don't have, where you get to constantly be learning and seeing where you went wrong and improving upon yourself. And I think that's something that is really attractive to me and a reason that, I think I'd be well suited to the role.